All right. I think we're live.
Hey, everybody.
Live, baby.
We're going to do a 1-minute buffer time to let the masses gather. Right now, the eyeball says 0. So
Come on, everybody.
So far, the masses.
Join
Oh,
in.
there's a person. There's a person. Welcome
Hello,
to the
person.
200th episode of the Provoke and Inspire podcast. I'm here. David's here. Luke is here. I
Yes.
pointed to Gabe. Gabe is here. Steve is here. Oh, 4 people. Look at that. See, we did say we were going to start at noon. So some people are like, they're running around. They're getting their peanut butter toast ready. They're
being very punctual, Britishly punctual.
Yes, all the Germans are showing up right now. All right, David, say something. Look, 10 people.
I'm trying to wake up. It's not noon for me.
All right. Hey, look, there's Brad.
Yes.
Look, let's Rachel, thank you for that congratulation emoji and the 200th. We appreciate it. We got the green one here. He says hello.
Yes, the green one.
We have here's the green one. Long time supporter. And of course, Brad. We couldn't do a podcast beginning without Brad. Thank you for joining us. All right, boys, you ready to start this thing? Are we going to do this?
Definitely. I'm just sharing it so that everybody can join us right now.
Okay, well, here we go. Welcome to the Provoke and Inspire podcast. We're so grateful that you can join us for our 200th episode recording. Bum, bum, bum.
Hello, everybody.
Bum, bum, bum. So we are live, and I mean literally, as the British would say, literally live right now. We got 10 eyeballs on us. If we say something, that's going to get us in trouble, it's going to be too late. You know what? This is it. We're putting it all out for the 200th episode. Welcome, fellas, from wherever you guys may be.
I'm a little nervous about being live right now because of Luke, if you know what I mean.
Me too.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, I'm worried too. I'm going to not say too much just in case I say something bad.
Well, what you guys don't realize is that I have to edit out virtually everything that Luke says. You might not realize, but he is just explicatives, political incorrectness, all sorts of microaggressions. I'm constantly retreating to my mental safe space whenever Luke is present. What up, Denwood? Whoop, 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 whoop. Anyway,
today you guys will get to know the real me.
Yeah.
No cuts, no edits.
No edits. So raw and unfiltered, that is the name of this podcast. We got various things planned for you. We have a fun surprise, a little quiz for us, the regulars, but also you, the listeners. We're gonna test your knowledge and how closely you've been listening to this podcast. We will have David's random story because we have to have it. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about what this podcast means to us, why we do this, and to kind of look at our mission statement. Every week I say, welcome to the Provoke and Inspire podcast, calling followers of Jesus to radical faith outside of the church. And I want to ask the question to you guys and to myself, what does that mean to us? What does it actually look like in our own lives? Why do we do this podcast? And what is it that we can say to those that so faithfully listen? So we're going to do that. I got a little comment here from Brittany. Yes?
Well, I just want to say that Nigel wrote a 1,000-page report on the 200 episodes, and he ranked each contributor. When do you want the report?
I think you should just hit us with it right now. And we got 20 people watching, so be on your best behavior.
All right,
so possible.
So anyway, for the sake of time, I've pulled out the main bullet points from his report. And these are Nigel's rankings. So if you guys want to ask questions about it, you can.
Yeah, by the way, you can ask questions. We are literally live. So go ahead, ask your questions, supply us with your comments. I will pop you up on the screen and we shall contribute. In fact, if I can figure out how to cover Luke's entire face with your comment, I will. But carry on, David.
All right, so.
What up, Diego?
So here we go. Luke once again took up the rear. Nigel says...
What is happening right now?
That's what he said. He took up the rear. I don't know.
The back seat's always the best.
So Nigel says his tiny suit betrays a kind of English sensibility that drives you and repels you at the same time.
Like a wind.
Is he really there to entertain us? Or do my adult diapers just need a replacement?
Okay, so
yeah,
that's
like
that?
I didn't know it was that far ahead for you.
Do you feel that one? Is it good?
Thank you, Marine.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so Chad received the bronze.
Wow. Wait. So let me get this right. Chad finished ahead of Luke.
Yeah, I know.
But in all seriousness, just real quick, Chad did say that he misses everyone. He will be back. I think I can officially announce the date. April 1st. Chad Ochocinco Johnson will be back. He says, I love you. He's had a great sabbatical. He's a great time just focusing on his family, his relationship with the Lord. He will be back. Oh, yes. And then Leon says this. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So, hey, Leon. Anyway, so
I think he's calling you out as a liar. What do you mean by that, Leon? Anyway, carry on.
He knows what time it is.
Chad received the bronze. Nigel says, vacant and absent for more than 6 months, like a lone wolf, brutish, vacuous, dripping with rectitude. Chad searches innermost being and comes up brimming with that boyish charm we love and are so grateful for. We never grow tired of his silence.
A number of you are pointing out that Chad literally is going to come back for April Fools, which
exactly does make you wonder.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm wondering. Maybe we'll bring back like a hologram of Chad. Like
all right. So let's continue on. Ben received the silver.
Yes, predictably.
Nigel says, coherent, eloquent, expressive. No, none of these things.
You had me pulled in so good. Oh, that's great. Dang it, Nigel.
But still, he carries a kind of water that keeps even the most sensitive Trojan close to the well. And then, I don't know. And then he goes, this is weird. I'm not going to lie. I wonder what's going on with Nigel, because he ends it with, oh, yes, says the horn blower.
Right.
Okay.
I do wonder about Nigel. Guys, I'll tell you something. After the last episode, we had an episode with Ben Fitzgerald, and afterwards he messaged me and he said, is something wrong with Nigel? So
why?
It's clearly coming across. People are aware.
Yeah.
There's something not quite right.
Hey, for those of you watching, not listening, David, could you manage to find yourself like within the confines of your geometric boundary there? You're kind of swiveling. Can't you? Come on. I know it's like a video. It's like a video game.
All right.
It's hard.
Right,
yeah, it is.
So,
that's the opposite to what you expect.
Can I get back to David's
idea.
What he said about me?
No idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right. So Nigel said that.
By the way, we have 27 people watching and or listening. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Each eyeball warms our hearts.
All right. So let's get back to this.
Christy Lee is there.
David received the gold. What a surprise.
He says it himself. He mocks himself.
Nigel says, singular in his focus, with an aching desire to enlighten. David's remarkable intellect and astute sagacity leaves all who encounter him breathless and grateful to have encountered such a virtuoso, flawlessly answering the deepest longings of the human spirit.
Wow.
At first when you started giving your own review, the viewers plummeted. We were down to 20, but then they soared beyond 30. So I was about to throw out that result, but the people have voted. So I want to know from our people watching, what do you guys agree with? Do you agree with the rankings? Are they off? Do you have any comments to contribute? I know that I was lured in with that sort of false compliment only to be plunged into the depths of despair. But either way, Nigel, you're a harsh man, but you speak the truth. And for that, we salute you.
I was trying to remember the other day how Nigel first came into our lives when he joined in. Did you guys remember sort of the beginnings? And I mean, our new listeners have no idea sometimes.
I really don't. I really don't. But Luke, for fear of completely falling asleep out of boredom in response to your comment, I'm going to move along. Oh, man, I just realized now we have so many segments that David gets to dominate. But we really have no choice but to launch headforth into David's random story.
That was beautiful.
So
thank you. Oh, thank you.
I hope are you ever going to get the sound bites back? Because it's so lame when you have to sing it like that.
Can't hear you over my delicious coffee.
Yeah, so anyway, as you know, Luke has a Polish wife, and her name's Anya, and Anya will like just pull cooked chickens out of her coat and stuff like that. She'll go,
And she is the only wife I have, by the way. You know, I have a Polish wife and only a Polish wife.
yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, Olia. I've never met Olia. I've only met Anya. But
Aha.
so anyway, Luke has, and then which brings me back to when I first met Luke. It was in Brazil, was it? What city was I?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That was Brazil's a country, but yes,
Hey.
that's where we were.
A little
you had
on-air, hold on, a little on-air
What?
production here. Are you clipping on your end? Because I don't know about you, Luke, but David sounds like a rusty saw blade banging against a metal shed. It's grating.
You always sound like
frustrating.
that to me.
Oh, come on, Brad. I need some support here. David, I don't know. David is like,
Brad agrees with me.
well, he's like I'm like the government, and David's like the citizen. He has all the demands, but doesn't want to contribute anything. Wait,
Hey,
I don't
come
know.
on,
Or
are
the
we
other
gonna-
way around. I don't know.
So I went to Luke's apartment. It was like this really kind of small, kind of embarrassing apartment, and he had
Yeah.
a pet crab. Remember that? What was that?
Yeah, Snippy.
A pet
Was it a-
crab? What? No,
Yeah,
I
you
do
had
not
some-
remember having
or was
a
it
pet
a
crab.
spider? You had some kind of insect.
Yeah, okay, come on.
I
What
had
is this?
birds living in my house.
Okay.
had
Well, anyway,
lots
that takes
of
me
animals,
back.
birds.
That takes me back to India. You know, because in India, there'd be like there's like a mouse that would come out. Ton would know this, the green one, and you'd hold some bread and you'd feed the mouse, and it so kind of made me feel like kind of an affinity with rodents, and then there was during the whole punk scene, you know, a lot of people had rats and such as pets.
Yes.
And so we were at this birthday party in Germany, and there was this Finnish girl, and her name was Päivi, and Päivi had a pet rat, and sometimes she would like let a little saliva come to the edge of her mouth.
What, the rat or Päivi?
No, Päivi, and then the rat would come up and drink it. Like,
No.
yes,
No.
yes.
There is no
And,
Finn that would ever do such a thing. They're very civilized people.
So she was a. Well, yeah,
We have a Finn listening to this, please. Somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could
So
one of our Finns verify the nonsense of
Yeah,
this.
defend
comment?
yourselves. Defend
So
yourselves.
Päivi was doing that, and so we were having a sausage sizzle. So they're cooking these sausages. as they
Wait, sorry, I
do.
wasn't paying attention in the beginning. Was this in New Zealand?
Huh? No, it was Germany.
You don't have sausage sizzles in Germany?
Well,
That's
they
something
were
you
cooking-
do outside of the warehouse. Oh,
Well,
you
they were
wanna have a
cooking these
sausage
sausages.
sizzle
They're
outside
cooking
the
these-
warehouse. Oh,
They're
yeah.
cooking these sausages,
That's
and,
Kiwi, guys, by the way.
and Jody, my
Leon,
wife Jody,
sorry.
goes, "Hey, can you get me a sausage?" And I go, "Sure, honey." So then
Does anyone else feel like we're listening to David on half speed right now?
I went over to the sausages.
Like literally, like give me some of what
So
you're
I went
taking,
up
because-
to Päivi and I said, "Hey Päivi, give me the rat." So I put the rat in the
you
sausage
didn't.
bun. Yes, I did. I put the rat in the sausage bun, and the rat was exactly the right weight. He weighed the same
Okay.
as a sausage.
Leon, as a Kiwi, confirm that Kiwis do not put sausages in buns. They put them on flat, gross white bread.
I was in Germany.
Oh, okay. Well, then why was it a
So-
sausage sizzle?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
look, Maureen told us to move it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So-
Marie.
So anyway, so I put the rat in the bun and I handed it to Jody. And Jody, just as she was getting ready to take a bite, the rat's head stuck out of the bun. So she screamed and she threw the bun with the rat in it across the parking lot. It hit a telephone pole, smashed to the ground, but the rat was not injured because it was like the bun was like an airbag. It was like he was in one of those big cushioned balls that you go down a hill with. And
A
so
cushioned ball.
it
Yeah.
did not injure the rat. And I think the rat actually enjoyed it because it was like like a rat inflated wheel ride or something. And so I guess the moral to the story is if you're going to throw the rat, make sure that you put him inside of a bun and then he'll be okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
now, Ben, share Ton's comment, just so everybody knows. the
Well,
truth.
what did Don?
He
What
said-
was Ton's comment? The comments
he
are
said-
flying.
He said, I did it, not David. He's lying again. That's what Ton says.
Yeah, but see,
You did it, Ton? I thought I did it.
no, Ton definitely did it. But see, that's the thing about David's stories. And this next segment's going to prove
It all
this
gets
fact.
mixed in.
Look, David's stories are not flat out lies. They're highly exaggerated truths. There'd be like a tiny nugget of truth, and from which he'll sprout all sorts of facts, and he'll be very loose with the who, what, where, and why, if you will. And so a little deceivery is to be expected. But anyway, we're going to do something a little unusual. And for those 28 of you listening, watching, you can play along. We're going to do a little bit of a quiz. Here's how this is going to work. Steve, and he'll be quickly shown here on the screen. Steve has extracted 5 questions from random stories throughout our whole history, and he's turned them into multiple choice questions. So we're going to test myself, Luke, and David, because not only will it be funny to see if we've been paying attention, those of you commenting, you can also comment your answers. But this is also going to test whether David is, in fact, telling the truth, because I'm guessing he's going to get a lot of the facts of his own stories wrong. So here's how this is going to work. We are going to now switch over to Steve here, and he's got these 5 questions, and we're going to go ahead.
Hello,
There's
Steve.
Hey, for those who don't know,
Hey, you
Steve,
made it to the podcast, brother.
Finally.
He's been on with NLM for 12 years, the guitarist, and he's been a faithful member of. There's my hand. Faithful member of this podcast in many different ways, and he's going to go ahead and read the questions and quiz us. And for those of you listening, please play along. So here we go. Steve, would you do us the honor?
So, question 1. In episode 183, David talks about sitting in church with his brother-in-law Lance and placing something unusual in the offering plate as it passes by. The question is, what did he put in the plate? Is it A,
The stew.
is it A, a hat, B, foreign currency, C, shoe, or D, a glove?
Okay, here's how we're going to do this.
Shoot.
Old,
I said it first.
yeah, old
Bam, buzzer.
Frisky McSamson over there couldn't hold his mouth for 10 seconds. Wait, let us hear all of the questions, get the answer in your head, and then Steve, then when we'll go through all 5 and we'll see how many you got right, okay? So just remember, you got to be truthful here, but just remember your answer, and then we'll go on to the next one. Also, actually, you know what? We're going to do one at a time. So for those listening or watching, or if you're one of us, repeat those answers real quick, and then we can raise our hands.
Okay, so the question is, what did he put in the plate? It's either A, hat, B, foreign currency, C, a shoe, or D, a glove.
Okay, so how are we going to do this? Raise your hand if you think it's A. I almost raised my hand. Let's do it that way. Do B. Say B and then name it, and then you can raise your hand. Steve?
Really? I have to raise my hand.
Is it A, a currency?
All right, the answer is C. Everyone knows the answer is C. I didn't really
All right.
think this through, okay? Next
A
question.
A shoe. All right,
Bad.
there we go. In episode 163, David recalls the story of performing, however reluctantly, an NLM song at a Kurdish wedding reception in southeastern Turkey. Which song was performed? Was it A, Navel, B, Monkey Jumping, C, Cold as Buddha, or...
All right, here's how this is going to work. Your name is the buzzer. If you say your name, that means, like Jeopardy, you get to give the answer. Start the answers over again. Go.
A, Navel, B, Monkey Jumping, C, Cold as Buddha.
Ben, the answer is C, Cold Like Buddha.
That is correct.
The name of the song is Cold as Buddha.
But we're trying to figure out if David knows the answers to these questions. This is a train wreck. All right, next question.
Next question. In episode 60, David recalls a time this is a difficult one, he tricked a sick band member into drinking an entire bottle of NyQuil when it was actually a bottle of what? Here we go. Was it A, bourbon, B, colored water, C, grape juice, or D,
Luke,
German
A.
beer?
Luke, hey.
That is correct.
David.
We've also accepted what is bourbon.
I love this because David's like my whole sub point of this was to expose David's lies, and he doesn't even get a chance. David's going to answer this next one no matter what. Here we go.
Yeah, David has to answer the next one.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. In episode 98, David.
This is so bad.
David remembers getting attacked at a Christmas delight thing because he was blocking a driveway with his car. He describes the assailant as, quote, one of those guys with a what? Is it A, shovel, B, shepherd's cane, C, banjo, or D, monkey wrench?
Banjo.
That is correct.
Oh,
Wow.
man, I did not
I
know
am
the answer
impressed.
to that question. Did you?
I
Luke?
didn't
Be
know
honest.
either. No,
I had
I
no
did not
idea.
know.
I did not. Hey,
I must have missed that one.
we have 27 people watching. Come on, people. I need to see your answers in the comments here. I want to see, and Paul, you are right. David is winning by simply not
By
answering.
not answering.
All right, next.
Okay.
Beautiful picture, by the way, Paul. You look fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the last one. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. In episode 173, David talks getting stopped at airport security because of them opening his bag and finding a big bottle of what? Was it A, hairspray, B, women's perfume, C, foundation, or D, women's kombucha?
Let David do it. I know it. Luke, do you know it?
No, I don't.
I do know it.
C. Women's kombucha.
No. No, it was foundation. It was foundation, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. That's right.
What's kombucha?
Why
It's
would you?
true.
Why would you guess the one that you didn't even know? Like as like a literal noun. You
Because
didn't know
I thought it was something else. I did, but I thought maybe kombucha meant what I thought it was.
yeah, no, it was most certainly foundation. We've lost a lot of the people because they're probably like, this is ridiculous. But
Yeah,
hey,
fair enough.
I enjoyed it. I found it fun. Hopefully, yeah. See, Brad knows it was foundation, and based on the looks of things, it probably makes sense. Anyway, moving along. Okay, so we're gonna get serious here for a minute. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So as I said in the beginning, the entire purpose of this podcast is calling followers of Jesus to radical faith outside of the church. Again, before we launch into it, I do want to say that I'm really, really grateful for all of you that listen. David and I and Luke were reflecting just on how crazy it is that we've done 200 of these episodes. I don't know exactly how long, but that spans several years. And just to think of all of our crazy schedules and life changes and things that we're going through and that we've been able to persevere, it's cool. It's really cool. And I see it as a great privilege for those of you that have listened and have stuck with us and joined our community and supplied us with questions and told us how this has encouraged you. That's really, really encouraging to me. And I just want to say that I'm grateful for you listening. Obviously, if no one would listen, we'd maybe not do this. And so thank you. My heart is that this would accomplish that mission of calling you to be bold for Jesus outside of the church. And so what I thought would be interesting and cool is to sorry, I'm looking at these comments and they're distracting, is to ask the question, what does that mean to us? What does it mean to be radical for Jesus outside of the church? And kind of, if this is our heart in this podcast, in our lives and our hope for you, what does that actually mean? So Luke, since David's had a lot of random moments, how about you start with what the purpose of this podcast means to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love the line. I think, Ben, you defined that as we went on, calling followers of Jesus to radical faith outside the church. I think that line says a lot to me. Like for me, it breaks it into three aspects. One, the fact that we follow Jesus and the relationship with him is what needs to stand out the most for me. Radical faith being living a life where that relationship affects everything I do and in every context, every time or stage of my life, decision I've made, how that affects and should affect every decision I make as a life of obedience. And then the third part, outside the church, realizing, for me, that part is like realizing that there is a cultural gap between the church and people who in this generation have grown up away from church or seeing religion or God or faith in general as something irrelevant to their day-to-day lives, and realizing that it's not enough to just do church well or go and share the gospel, go and tell people about Jesus, but that there's this cultural gap that's stopping people from really understanding who he is, and the need for us to get out there and share that in a way that's relevant to them. So for me, those three aspects of that tagline are really key, and are really a key part of my life personally, but a thing that I really love that we can share through our conversations with guests and with different people. Those three aspects are really, really cool to have as a key thing. So
yeah,
that's why it's cool for me.
What about you, David?
Well, when I grew up in the church where I learned a lot of facts, knowledge about the Bible, about God, but it was more of an academic thing for me. And when I was going to the University of Minnesota, and I had kind of these different things going on with my friends, and I started to really cry out to Jesus for the first time in a real way. I really started to read the Bible, not in a religious way, but in a way that, God, I got to understand this. It doesn't, and I really started to wrestle with things. That's when everything in my life became real. And it's so, I discovered that the most exciting, the most important thing I can do is to follow this Jesus who is powerful, and it's not just a kind of a religious tradition. And so that's the thing that has driven me my whole life. And so what I like about the catchphrase, bringing the love of Jesus outside of the church, to me, that's the whole point. I mean, if Jesus isn't alive in real culture, if he's not alive in everyday life and the things that we deal with, I talk to so many people who, there's just being lied to all the time about their value, about their purpose, that are just trapped in this idea of hopelessness and no future. And I just think the thing that makes me want to follow Jesus is that he's so real in daily life, in the things that I face now. And so that's what drives me and motivates me, and why I think this podcast is important.
Yeah, just a reminder, we are streaming live, and quite a few of you are listening, watching. So please contribute questions. I know we had kind of a fun beginning, but if there's something you want to say, you want to ask, please do that. We will try to react to as many of those as we can. So we really want this to be an interactive experience. Man, there's just so much that I want to say on this. I don't know if you guys saw the interview that Justin Bieber gave recently with Zach Lowe. He's actually a Kiwi. For some reason, I always want to say Rob Lowe, and I'm always like telling myself, don't say Rob Lowe. But man, he's handsome. Anyway, Zach Lowe, he's this producer, DJ from New Zealand. And if you haven't watched this, watch it. Go YouTube, just write Justin Bieber, Zach Lowe. It's like an hour, 45-minute interview. I think Apple Music is the one who put it on. It's incredible, honestly. And it's, first of all, the host's willingness to open the door for Justin to be very honest about his faith consistently. He doesn't shut it down. He doesn't try to sort of marginalize it or minimize it. He really lets him speak. And it's so great. It's so authentic. And, among the many profound things that I thought Justin said, he just talks about his faith so naturally. It's like he's just not going to fake it. He is who he is, and he's just going to, and it's just so natural. And I know when we talked to Ben Fitzgerald about sharing your faith, he talked about just be natural. Talk about Jesus like you're talking about your favorite sports team. And I don't think he meant that in a casual or irreverent way, but it shouldn't be this weird thing where your attitude changes, your tone changes, your posture changes, and all of a sudden you're nervous and you don't know how to speak. Obviously, it's going to be hard because of the spiritual opposition and the fear of being laughed at. But there was just such an ease and simplicity to how Justin was talking about it. And one of the many things he said that I thought was so great is he just said, my whole life I've been given such bad examples of what it meant to follow Jesus that I could just say this prayer and have this faith, but it didn't have to affect my life. And he said, what changed for me is when I just started to say, okay, I actually want to be obedient. I want to actually do I want to do what you say I should do. I want to live like you want me to live. And it's not perfect. And it's not about me being more important. or self-righteous, and even talked about how when he first really came to faith, he felt this self-righteousness coming over him, where he was all of a sudden like, well, look at all these things I'm not doing. But he's just discovered, like, it's just this simple desire. It's this simple desire to want my life to look more like Jesus today than it did yesterday. I want to be more obedient at the end of today than I was yesterday. I want that gap to close between what I know and what I do. And it's this simple journey. And he just seems so free in expressing that. And so for me, that's what it means to have a radical faith outside of the church, is that you get up every day and you say, Jesus, this is who I am, and this is who you called me to be. By your power, help me to be more like you at the end of this day than I was before. And you walk that out, and you walk that out. And it's a simple, beautiful, authentic thing.
Yeah, it's like what Justin Bieber was saying there about it's before he just was told, if you just say this prayer or something and acknowledge Jesus in a certain way, then you can give yourself the label Christian. But I had the same thing. It's like when I realized it wasn't about acknowledging something. It's like in the Bible it says the demons acknowledge Jesus. They acknowledge that he's real. But it's when you surrender to him. And that's, when I came to that point where I just said, no, I have to know you. I can't just know about you. And I think so much of what I grew up in was, it wasn't about knowing Jesus, it was about knowing about him. If you learn certain key verses, if you had a certain theological thing memorized, then you were cool. But it's a relationship. And I think that's the thing that completely changed everything in my life when I understood that point. And then that it cost something. It wasn't just something I could add to my life, but it cost me. It had to become the focus, and from that point on, it was the focus, not something I did. It wasn't the religious part of me, but it was the part it was like Jesus had to be the center. I had to, and I struggled, but I had to take myself out of the center and make him the center.
Yeah, I agree. I think the relationship aspect of what we're talking about, and what's been a theme in the podcast as well, is so key. And maybe it's not talked about enough, because as Christians we always think that's the obvious part of our faith, and yet it's often the part that we miss out the most. And whether it's because of religiosity, of trying to just do what others are doing, or following a certain pattern and not really thinking it through anymore, or just forgetting the truth, the reality that what we're talking about is a person who we can relate to and how that should affect us. And I was even thinking that over again today, just thinking about this podcast. And I was just thinking through what do I mean when I say I have a personal relationship with Jesus? And for me, there's various aspects to it. Like there is the aspect of knowing certain things, knowing who Jesus is, his person, his character, knowing the story of what he did that I read in the Gospels. That's the ground we stand on. And it's important, the story, the Gospels, the historical documents that we have that show who he is. That's for sure an important part of it, and often a first step or a first start for people. But then the realization that the things he said and did were true and not just a fairy tale or just a story. And that because that what he said is true, what he did is true, that he's alive now, that he's in this room where I am right now, that I can know he's here, I can talk to him, I can listen to him, I can read his word and let him speak to me. And then for me, maybe even more, but when it becomes even more real, is that relationship affects me somehow. And every relationship should. If I'm really in a relationship with somebody, it should change me somehow. It should affect me. And so it's not just the feelings, and feelings are part of it. The Holy Spirit moves in our lives and in our hearts and guides us, and we get a sense of where he's leading us, or a word or a guidance to do something. But it also radically changes our hearts. Like it changes our characters and the way we act and the things we do. If we're really kind of listening and giving our hearts to him day by day, he's changing, he's molding our character. He becomes the ground we stand on morally, philosophically, existentially. It changes our perspective on life. And I think that is key. And it's something you nurture and run after more and more. It's something you seek. And the more you seek, the more it fills you, and the more the hunger grows in you. And I mean, Jesus talked about that, about this hunger, this need for God. Like when he talked about the hunger for bread that people had, and he said hunger after God and the things of God.
Yeah.
And I just, so I think that for me, I'm just trying to put into a nutshell, as I was reflecting, what do I mean by I'm a follower of Jesus? This is real to me. It's not going to church. It's not, and it's become like that for too many Christians. It's
Yeah.
become too much a nominal thing. It must be, I must look again and remember, what do I mean when I say I follow Jesus?
Yeah. And another, not to keep referring this back to the Justin Bieber interview, but he also kind of hit on some of the paradoxes in your faith, in the sense that you know that you're deeply flawed and yet you're still loved, right? You strive to be more like Jesus, knowing that you're already accepted. And so he kind of talked about embracing these paradoxes. And I feel that as well, where I'm not required to get up early and seek God and read my Bible. I want to. I desire to nurture that relationship, but then I don't feel oppressed or weighed down or condemned when it doesn't work out perfectly. So this morning, I got up. My kids have been sick, so the routine's been a bit messed up. And I got up and I was, I'd finished reading my Bible, and I was just doing my routine where I start praying. And Macklin, my son, needs me. I hear him calling from his bed, so I go over there, and so then he wanted me to lay down next to him, and so I just lay down next to my son, and I just felt. It sounds weird, and I don't mean this to be dramatic, but I felt like God was like, "It's cool, like I can be with you right here, like let's just talk right here." You know what I mean? Like, because my first thing was, I didn't get to finish my prayer routine, but I felt this really beautiful thing, like, I want you to be with your son right now, and I want to be with you like you're with your son. And it felt so beautiful and relational. Like I didn't feel like God was mad. I didn't check that box. Instead, I felt this father heart. Like, it's cool. It's cool. Like, I know your heart. I know you want to be with me, and let's just lay here together, and let's just you comfort your son, and I'll just be with you. And it was just this beautiful, simple reminder to me that, yeah, we got to fight, and it is a struggle, but it's awesome, and it's relational, and it's that paradox where we fight for it, but it's not religion.
Yeah, it's like I've been meditating a lot on Romans 8:31, where Paul says God is for us, not against us, and but it's not because he doesn't know who we are. It's not because he doesn't know who I am. It's not like I'm fooling him. He doesn't see the thoughts that I have that I'm ashamed of. He doesn't see, it's, people can be for me if they don't really know me. And I've had friends like that who, as long as I was performing a certain way, they were my friend. And here you have God who knows everything, and I can't hide from him, and he's for me, even knowing all of this. It's like, really? I mean, you're still for me? And then he proved it by sending the most valuable thing he had, Jesus. So to prove it, and then it says, God does not condemn. Who can condemn? So like you're saying, Ben, no one can condemn me, because the God of the universe, who I can't hide from, who knows me totally and completely,
Wow.
He doesn't condemn me. So, because I talked to so many people, even last week I was speaking somewhere, and they just feel like, oh, I'm a loser, I'm useless, I don't have any value. And I'm going, God himself knows you, all the bad things about you, all the good things, and he doesn't condemn you. And it's like, man, that's hardcore. And when you understand that, how can you not want a relationship with this beautiful Father? And and then out of that desire, you want to know him, and it's like, the more you understand that, it's not a cheap grace thing. When you understand the incredible, undescribable love that he has, it makes you want to make him happy, right?
Yeah.
So you don't do things to earn his love. You do it because you want to make him happy, because you just like, man, I don't know why you're for me, God, but please let me be a good son. And that's something I pray often is, God, I want to do better because I love you and you're such a good dad. Help me to do better.
Yeah, man. And I just, watching this, incredibly, talented, but also very hurt celebrity speak about his faith just made me go, it's not so complicated, right? The gospel is not so complicated. Here's a guy, who by church standards, he doesn't have a seminary degree. He says a few words that aren't great in the interview. He's not all perfect. He's got a sketchy past, all this stuff. And yet I felt such an anointing on Justin Bieber when he was sharing the gospel. I was like, this is awesome. This is powerful. And I came away from that going, we make it so complicated. The way he communicated, it felt like, he's recently married. And so a lot of, he's all of his albums about that relationship. And it gets a bit sketchy at times, if I'm honest. But the point is, the love is real, and you can really sense it. It's so fresh. It's like that newly married love. You still feel that same vibe with him, with his relationship with God. It feels that fresh, just unpolluted love that's not gotten all weighed down by just too much theology. Sorry, just too much division, too much church culture, too much. It just feels fresh, and it feels so inviting, and it feels like it makes me envious of that pure, basic love relationship with Jesus that can get so hard to maintain as you get real good at this Christian thing. And you get then it starts to become about what kind of music you like and what preachers are perfectly riding that balance of orthodoxy. And it's funny because I've really been feeling this desire to want to see more organic power in my life. So much of what I do is on a podcast or on a stage or whatever. I want to see God's power in the coffee shop. I want to see God's power with my neighbors. I want to see, we were able to partner with Brian Head from Korn recently. And, we had no real idea how it was going to go. We invited Steve and I backstage. He gave us 15 backstage passes. We tried to organize it in advance, but he's amazing, but we didn't communicate it very clearly. And he said, just go out. Be led by the Holy Spirit, go out and grab 15 people that want to hear my testimony. And so Steve and I went, we found these two guys, and my heart instantly, I was like, these are the guys. I mean, it was dead clear. And we invited them back along with 15 guys and 15 different people, guys and girls. Brian shared his testimony, just same thing, same Justin Bieber, simple, I was broken. What did Paul? Oh, I'm not sure what Paul's saying. I'm assuming he's agreeing with me that we had no idea what we were doing. Nevertheless, he shared just that simple, guys, I was broken and I was lost, and he saved me, and he can save you too. And it was this beautiful message. And Steve and I went up and talked to these two guys we'd invited before they were able to speak to Brian, and they were both sharing just how they had just been so hurt by religion that one of them had attempted or thought about committing suicide, and his dad told him if he did that, he'd go to hell. And both of them just had this horrible perception of religion. And yet they were incredibly open to just being told that God created them, that he loved them, that he could forgive them, that he wanted to know them and love them exactly as they were. They weren't resistant to that. Not at all. They were resistant to this nonsense religion that they've been told all their lives. And man, there is such a simplicity in following Jesus radically outside of the church.
Well, I mean, didn't Jesus say, sorry, but didn't Jesus say you have to be like a little child? I think that's what we lose when we get all about our, we need to have proper doctrine. But when we get all worried about theological things that aren't even important, it's like, it needs to be childlike. And I think that's what you're talking about, Ben. It's a childlike thing. It's not, it's intentionally that way so that the intellectual part of us can't be proud. We can't be arrogant. Jesus said, you come to me, you have to be like a little child. So there's no pride, intellectual pride in it. No, I can't look, it's simple. And I think it's simple for a reason.
Yeah.
I think there is a part of our faith that we do need good theology, and we do need to study and go deeper. But for me, that's one part of a whole discipleship process that has to begin with what you're saying, David. It's a step as a that's hilarious. 200th episode, and it's all falling down. Coming inside.
I don't know what
it's falling apart.
I don't know what that's symbolism for. Is that symbolism for Luke and his Is that our podcast is going to go under? We're going to let the audience decide. Wow, Luke. Can we
Brilliant.
get rid of this
No.
tape too? Can someone deal with that?
Yeah, take that
Get rid
tape
of that
off.
tape. Oh, anyway. Okay, deep breath. Go again. And
No,
we're
I was
back.
just saying. Yes. So I was just saying that I think it's true. Like it starts with a simple faith, and that simple faith has to continue throughout our walk with Jesus. But the discipleship process is then one of steps of obedience.
Yeah.
And of learning what Jesus is calling me to do, learning what his character is like, so that molds my heart. And as I go through that, then it affects everything, and including my intellect. It affects the way I see life, what I study, what I learn, what I grow. And so then theology and all those different things should become part of it, because I do want to grow and learn more about the Bible and his word and how to understand it better. But it should always be it needs to be something real practical, and it's steps of obedience, and not just something I study, David, like you were saying, something academic. For me, that became really real when I was at university. My parents are missionaries, and that's why I grew up in Brazil. And so I, from a young age, was part of that whole world of missions. We left the UK, went to Brazil when I was 8 years old, and I grew up in that world. And so I had this idea, I should serve God. I should do something as well. And I wanted that, and I prayed for it and asked God for it. When it came to time of going to university, I actually didn't want to go. I wanted to go study at a Bible school somewhere and just become a missionary. But as I prayed about it, I really felt Jesus saying, just go do this degree. It's good. It's part of your growing and developing. And I was like, no, I want to study the Bible, and I want to be a missionary. I want to tell people about Jesus. And I felt like he said to me, just read the Bible and put it into practice, and let that be your Bible school. Let that be your theological training, And so I started doing this thing where I'd get up in the morning, I'd have my time like reading the word and praying. And whatever I read there, I was going to go, how can I put this into practice today? As simple and straightforward as that. And that to me is discipleship. So it'd be like, I'd read about Jesus walking the streets and healing people, or bringing them to a clearer understanding of who he was by teaching and preaching. And so I'd be like, how can I do that? And I'd go out onto the streets and meet people and share and pray for people and do things. And then I'd read about how he would use a story to show what he meant. And I'd be like, how can I find illustrations today? Or how can I do something today that will really connect with people? And it's that simple obedience that then grows and develops, and it molds my heart, my character, my mindset, my mind. That's discipleship. And I think that's what we mean when we say following Jesus with this radical faith. And the word radical in our tagline can sometimes be misunderstood. And it's not like being weird about it in any way. For me, radical, it's like it's the root of everything I am and do. And so it should, like we've already said, mold every decision we make. It should change the way I see life. So for me, what I went to study at university needed to be influenced by my relationship with Jesus. What job I accepted, or why I would take a job, needed to be influenced by what I felt God calling me to do. The person I married needed to be influenced by my relationship with Jesus and what he was calling me to do, and every aspect of my life. So for me, the whole idea of becoming a missionary suddenly isn't about being special or unique or different to other people as a follower of Jesus, and having that separation of the normal church people and the missionary, but rather realizing that we are all called, and that being a missionary really is just about, how do I live my life? Are my decisions really influenced by what I believe? And do I guide and drive my life based on what he's calling me to do? Or am I just following what everybody else is doing? And that to me is the difference between being a radical follower of Jesus, a missionary, and ending up being stuck in something that's nominal, something that's just, I just go to church,
Yeah. And again, just a reminder, we'd love to get your questions. So we've quite a few of you watching. So if you have questions or comments, please add those, and I'll be able to throw those up on the screen here. We can talk about them. But David, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, Luke, I think what you're saying is really, really great. And about how the center then was not, Jesus was something you tag onto your life, but he was the center of all your decisions, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that can happen, because when you're in that stage of you have this encounter with Jesus and you see that he is real, which is a shocking, at least it was to me, because I just knew him in a doctrinal way. But then I understood that he actually is real and that he actually is moving and wants to do amazing things in my life. The focus started to change in me, where I started to think more about what am I going to do for God more than knowing God. It's like I started to be focused on what ministry am I going to do? How is he going to use me? I want to, and you go to a lot of church events and people say, I was at one last week. And the youth leader goes, God wants you to be great, and it's like, yes, I want to be great. And I can slowly start changing from knowing this relationship to doing the great ministry for Jesus. And I had to be really broken. And sometimes I probably have to have it happen to me again, where Jesus said, man, it is not about you doing ministry for me. Ultimately, the most important thing is that you know me, that you have a relationship with me. And it's like what Jesus said in Matthew 7:21 through 23, said, many will have done great signs and wonders, have great ministries, and he will say, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really crucial. And I want to say to everyone who's listening to this, the most important thing is knowing Jesus. That has to be the central point. And out of that, everything else should come.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And that's a little bit of what I was illustrating, even through the example of my Macklin, my son, being sick and me kind of laying there. Because even that stuff can become religious. Even that stuff can be checking a box, and it's no longer, the heart of it is no longer relationship. And so I think you have to continue to bring even your spiritual routines before Jesus and say, where's my heart in this stuff? And I think he'll challenge you. But it's complicated, because how you live often reflects your heart, the priorities you have and the decisions you make. To give you an example, and this kind of goes under the heading I have here of your faith is growing or dying, but it never stays the same. And I think that's part of a radical faith, is recognizing that you can't coast, right? It's like a human relationship. It's like a marriage. Your relationship is either growing or dying. And that might sound like a pressured reality, but it's true. And so you can't live on yesterday's faith. You can't live on yesterday's experiences. You can't just ride on that. And you can, right? You can really do that. You can kind of coast on past experiences and faith for a long time. But this idea that you're either growing or dying, I think, is so incredibly important. To give you an example, we've been really praying a lot as a mission. And we felt in January that we should devote an entire month to 24 hours, 7 days a week prayer throughout our whole mission, that we would really personally commit ourselves to more prayer every day. And if I'm honest with you, and maybe I said this on the last podcast, I don't know, but it was a struggle for me. It was a struggle because I had my morning routine, and I was like, I already do my morning routine, and it's a long time, and I felt good about myself, like I was checking this religious box. And then I was having lunch with a pastor, and this pastor was talking about how he was struggling in this new church to try to change the culture, to get people to understand what real sacrifice looked like, what it really meant to be a part of something, be a part of change. Because so often he experienced that it was like, okay, if I just give $100, right, then I've contributed, like I've made a difference. And we've kind of create these boxes for what it means for a Christian to contribute. I do my little prayer, I give a little bit of money, I've contributed. And he was saying, no, that's nothing. For so many people, the things they give, it doesn't cost them anything. And true sacrifice comes at the expense of something you'd rather have, or you fight to want, right? It's like, I really need this money, I really need this time for something else, but I'm recognizing through my actions, I'm demonstrating through my actions that this is more important to me. And so in this whole prayer thing, I started to realize it wasn't costing me anything getting up anymore. I was good at it. It wasn't I was up before my family. It wasn't costing me any time at work. I could get it all done. I was 7:30 a.m. I was like, I was done with that whole routine. And I really felt like God was saying to me, do you really believe in who I am? You say on stages all the time that without God, we are nothing, and that if we do not seek him, we have no power, and that nothing happens apart from him. And yet you're not seeking me in a way that reflects you actually believe that. In fact, you've made it so easy for yourself that there's no sacrifice in it at all. And so, David, do you think that there's an element of having radical faith where you're, in a good way, you're striving to never be satisfied, but to continue to take steps?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you first come to Jesus, radical faith for you might be, I'm not going to sleep with my girlfriend.
Right.
You know? So I'm not going to, I'm not going to get drunk. I'm not going to, when you first give your life to Jesus, that's radical. Hey, I don't know. I didn't see the Justin Bieber interview, but maybe he talked about stuff like that. I'm not sure, but it's like that's your faith steps then. But as you grow in your walk with God, then he asks you to go, okay, what about your thought life? What about your, and then it goes up, what about what are you going to do with your life? It keeps going deeper. And so it's like, there's layers that God pulls off of me. And then he asks me to take another step of faith. He expects me to go deeper with him, in terms of my relationship, and so I think it's part of your maturing as a follower of Jesus is you can't stay the same. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Because it's like I deal with one thing in my life and then I think, okay, I'm good, and then Jesus will show me something else, okay, David, let's work on this now. But because he's a good father, he doesn't show it to me all at once. And it's also in terms of faith, he gave you that ability to seek him early in the morning, like you did. And he's going, that's great, Ben, but I've got so much more for you. Let's take another step. And so I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
It's taking one step after another, but not standing still. I don't think you can stand still.
Yeah. How about we get to a few of these questions before we wrap up? Yeah. So Ton asks, Luke, maybe you want to hit this one. What does Jesus mean when he said, if you want to follow me, take up your cross?
Yeah, I've always wondered about that verse, actually, because it's interesting to me how specific he can be before his death on the cross, that he can say, take up your cross and follow me. I mean, I'm gonna guess here, and I should probably do a deeper study on that to understand, but that he really is literally referring to already a clear knowledge that he was going to die on the cross, and inviting the followers to follow him in that way. And that's how we always interpret it. But it's definitely related to this sacrifice, this idea of sacrifice we're talking about. It means not counting my life as precious, but following him as the most precious thing. And he says in that same context there that if you try to gain your life, you lose it. If you lose your life, you gain it. And realizing that it's about letting go. It's about giving up. And it's so countercultural today that we've been talking about it in the context of our relationship with Jesus. Our relationship with Jesus requires me to deny myself, to say, I'm not able to do this on my own. I need Jesus. That's probably the first, this culture especially, it's the first step and the biggest step, is to switch from saying, I can do this, I'm able, I'm capable, which is what our humanistic, philosophy around us tells us. It says, strive for the things you need in your life. You will manage. It's to switch from that to saying, no, I am a sinner. I fail because my nature is selfish. I turn to my own things. If I'm left to my own ways, I mess stuff up. I need Jesus. I need his sacrifice. And so then picking up the cross means denying myself. It's saying I can't do it on my own. I need you. But I'd also want to take it a little bit further to like the third part of our tagline, which is the whole concept of being outside the church. And I think that also requires a sacrifice, in the sense that what Jesus did, his sacrifice on the cross so that others could find life, needs to become a core part of who I am today. I should not be living anymore for myself, but also for others. And I think that reaching this culture today in this generation requires sacrifice. So taking the message of the gospel outside the church requires sacrifice. It requires letting go of my comfort zone and going to people and being bold, But also when we talk about in our mission Steiger, we talk about being culturally relevant. It's not just, it's one big part of it is being bold and just preaching the gospel and going and meeting new people and sharing our faith with them. But it needs to go further than that. It's actually realizing that there are cultural barriers that have to be knocked down only by giving my life relationally to other people, so that I spend enough time with them and I live with people close enough that they can see what it looks like to follow Jesus today. And that's what Paul talks about when, we've referred to this in the podcast in the past, but become all things to all men is a life of sacrifice for other people, saying, how can I walk with people and help them see who Jesus is and follow Jesus, and I walk with them so they learn what that really means. That takes time. That's sacrifice. That's giving myself for others. So I really think that that's something I think all of that encapsulates in what Jesus said: pick up your cross and follow me. Do as I did.
Yeah, maybe we could just, for the sake of time here, sorry, Christy, I'm going to skip over your question, not because it's not a good one, but I think that could be a different episode. David, could you just end by answering this question? Essentially, it says, it says this exactly. I remember particularly one friend who was so honestly asking what should he do, as he feels like his relationship with God was too religious, even having been a Christian for many years. Could you guys talk about the simple first steps people could give or take towards living a radical faith? So maybe as a way to kind of wrap this up, David, what, for someone listening and saying, I want this, I want to have this radical faith outside of the church, could you just give a, not super long, but give a minute or so concluding thought to the heart of our podcast and maybe address a little bit towards this question?
I think one of the barriers I can have if I've had a kind of this religious exposure to Jesus is I can seek him in that way. And I think the first step is to stop seeking him in a religious way and start being honest. So start praying honest prayers. I would pray things like, God, I'm really sorry for this bad thing that I am doing. And that wasn't an honest prayer. What I needed to pray was, God, I'm not sorry about this bad thing I'm doing. Would you change my heart? Start telling God what you feel, not what you want him, what you think he wants you to feel. Start praying in a non-religious way. I don't understand this, Jesus, or this doesn't make sense to me. When you start being honest and you're talking to him, that's important. And then when you read the Bible, when you read something that Jesus said, don't read it in a religious way, but read it in a non-religious way and go, I don't understand what this means, God, or would you speak to me, or why I'm not seeing this happening in my own life?
Yeah.
And so those to me are things that you need to do. And then God will start breaking into your life and you'll start to know him in the way that you desire. To me, those are keys.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would just add, I think you should sincerely look for people who also desire to not be religious, right? I think if you're around people who seem content to just do the cultural thing, I think you need to look for people that, you can be the one inspiring others by all means, but I think part of it is we get swept up in our culture, and I think we need to seek out other people and go, yes, let's do this. Let's push. Let's go out into the streets. Let's desire to see what we read come into our actual lives. Let's hold each other accountable. Man, whenever I've been in cultures like that, it's like the growth is like so much faster than when you feel like everyone around you is kind of content to do the normal thing. And you're the only one that feels like there's something wrong with this version of Christianity that doesn't seem to align with Jesus. I think that, and then by all means, inspire and challenge those that maybe are stuck in that. But I think surrounding yourself with the right community helps too. So anyway, this has been awesome. We've had so many people watch and listen. And again, let me just say from the bottom of my heart, with all the levity aside, that we so appreciate you, your support, your comments, those that have rated this, those that have reviewed this. We're not going away anytime soon. We hope we'll be doing the 300th episode in no time flat. And you guys have meant a lot to us, and we hope that this is God has used this to inspire you. I don't know. Do you guys have any parting words?
No, I just want to agree. It just means you have no idea how much it means to us when we hear from you guys about how the podcast is encouraging you and helping you to want to be more bold in your faith. And it's, it does the same for me. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been so supportive and so part of this whole thing, this whole podcast. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, stuff like what Brittany Johnson just shared here on the comment session today, saying how it's encouraged her. That's why we do this. We want to see more people encouraged and being bold and being radical followers of Jesus outside the church. So we want to keep talking about this. Help us do it. Help us by sharing it more and more. We want to see this go beyond as well and really encourage people around the world. So yeah, walk with us in this.
Hey, there's some cool,
I agree.
Ben, I want to see that guy. There's some cool looking guy that was kept appearing.
Yeah, it's like
behind.
a terrorist.
Let me see him.
Terrorist that appeared behind.
Oh, Gabe?
I mean, yeah. Come in more. Yeah.
He's holding
I
Ben
like
hostage, and we don't know that.
Yeah.
It's a hostage video.
Leon's like, is Ben typing? Ben was typing. Sorry. When news,
it's very loud, isn't it, Leon?
Some
Very
news
loud.
is too important not to share. It's because guys, the next time we do the live stream, I will switch my microphone to this microphone. Audio. Hold on. I'm doing this on air. It's going to be worth it. Check this out. Boom. How much better am I? Guys, commenters.
Much better. Why did you not do that before?
Is my quality better?
It's not as good.
It's good.
Leon, is my quality better? Come on, Leon. I need you. Come on. I need you. Anyway.
Totally. It's nice and clean.
You guys have been the best. We'll talk to you next time. Peace. End broadcast.